Hello, everybody. I hope this is working. Everything looks different now that Facebook has changed their live little module here. How's everybody doing? I decided to do a sort of impromptu live this morning. Looks like it's working. I have not been able to come on, and it's probably been months now. So it's been a while. If you are new to the group, welcome. And this is Parenting Against the Grain, if you have forgotten what this is all about. Um, so, yeah, this is Parenting Against the Grain, and I wanted to just kind of refresh all our memories this morning about what this group is all about. I've been posting things here and there, but I haven't been interacting as much as I would like. The whole staying at home with kids and online schooling and all the COVID stuff has been a lot for all of us, including myself. So I'm trying to get back into the groove of doing some live videos and hopefully we can support each other more with this group. So first off, I wanted to just talk a little bit for a minute about what this group is all about because we have some new people. I haven't been on live in a while. So Parenting Against the Grain is all about focusing on using research and your own intuition to make good parenting choices, the best parenting choices you can for your family. So, the Parenting Against the Grain idea, I think, came from the thought that, like, sometimes with parenting, it's easy to just go with the flow. Like, whatever your neighbor's doing, whatever, you see on social media with parenting, like, just gonna kind of go with the flow and do what society tells me to do as a parent. And what I want to do with this group is help parents who want to be more intentional and more really thoughtful about how you're making parenting choices and not just maybe go with what culture tells you in terms of parenting. Um, and so that's what this group is all about. And so things that I tend to focus on with this group, and I think people in the group we talk about a lot, is things like fostering play, free play in our kids' lives. So not having an abundance of structured activities to where they don't have time just to be kids. So that's an important part of it. The other thing is we focus a lot on social emotional learning and how we can foster that in our kids. So, we talk about kindness and fostering emotional skills and how can we do that in a really intentional way with our kids. And then another thing that comes up quite a bit in this group is technology and how do we manage technology, help our kids manage technology in an age appropriate way. And I don't think most people in this group are totally against kids using technology. And nowadays, especially with the pandemic, we are almost forced to use technology to a certain degree. But how can we do this in a way that's helpful and not harmful to them? And help them learn how to manage technology as they get older and self-regulate in regards to technology. So those are some of the topics that come up within this group, and of course all sorts of other things too. Um, Besides just kind of refreshing ourselves about what this group is about, I also wanted to talk a little bit about positive parenting today because that's really what this group is about. It's positive parenting. People call it different things, right? But that's kind of the phrase that is um, I think the most understandable to people that when they hear positive parenting, I think most people know what that's about. The thing I hear a lot in with people who comment on my blog or people who chat in this group is sort of like the idea that maybe many of us maybe weren't parented in this positive parenting way. Maybe our parents used a lot of spanking or timeouts or punishment or things that with positive parenting we don't try to use as much. And so I think a lot of parents sometimes when they start with their own kids, it's like I want to do things differently, but I don't really know how. And so I think that's where positive parenting is really helpful because there's tons of resources out there to get you started, and it's a very kind of intuitive approach that focuses a lot on relationship building with your kids. And so I think it's very approachable. It's not some like stringent parenting approach where there's like a lot of rules. It's focused on building a strong relationship with your kids primarily. So I wanted to go through, if you're new to positive parenting or maybe you just kind of want to learn more about what it's really about, some of the goals of positive parenting and why we do things the way we do, those of us who support positive parenting. and research-based parenting. It's all kind of tied together. Okay, so I'm going to go over four what I consider to be primary goals of positive parenting. The first one is fostering emotional self-regulation. And so I think in the past, with past generations, the idea with parenting has often been, the whole idea of kids need to be seen and not heard. And if you're a child and you're misbehaving, you were punished, you were sent to your room, you were put in a corner, you were just something to keep you quiet, right? That was kind of the old school way of parenting. With positive parenting, the idea is we all have emotions. We have to learn how to cope with them and deal with them in effective ways. So why not start when our kids are young? So instead of if a kid has an outburst or is emotionally kind of losing it and losing control of their emotions, the whole idea is not to punish those emotions, not to put them, just kind of stuff them down so they don't learn how to cope with them. The role of positive parenting, and that's what we try to focus on here, is how can we help kids learn about emotions and regulate their emotions better as they mature? And I think even for many adults, if we didn't learn that as kids, we're probably learning it as an adult how to manage when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel anxious or upset or sad. And so, if we can teach those lessons to our kids at a younger age, then by the time they're adults, they will be much more well skilled and able to handle emotions. So, that's the whole idea of positive parenting. That's why most people who focus on positive parenting don't do a lot of like harsh punishments and spanking and things like that, because that doesn't teach our children how to deal with those emotions. It just stuffs them down. It just punishes the child for having emotions. And so the thing with positive parenting that we try to do is focus on things like fostering how can they cope with those big emotions. So is it, do they need to go sit by themselves and calm down? Do we need to talk them through some calming strategies like breathing or maybe some sensory things that would help them calm down? So it's all about skill building. How do we help them, cope with big emotions in a way that's effective? And that's one of the big goals of positive parenting. Number two, one of the big goals is finding the root causes of behavior. So with children, the thing that we always hear with positive parenting is behavior is communication. And I think this is so true in many aspects of life. Now, we often hear it primarily when kids are quote unquote misbehaving, right? If they're doing something we don't like, we say behavior is communication. What are they trying to communicate to us? Okay, are they tired, hungry, overstimulated, right? What's the root cause of this behavior? So that's one way of looking at it. But the other way of looking at it, and I talked about this in my weekly email. So if you don't get my weekly email, we can get you signed up for that. But the whole idea of behavior is communication in almost every situation, not just when we think that they're misbehaving, but when they're doing something unusual, when they're doing almost anything. So I gave the example of when my oldest son was about 2, he would hardly ever sit down to eat a meal or eat food. He was just up all the time. He would grab a bite of food and run off, and we'd try to get him to sit down. And so after a while, you kind of reflect on this, like behavior is communication. What is he communicating with this behavior? Well, at first I was like, well, he just can't learn manners, and I don't know how to teach him manners. Like it's my fault, right? That I can't teach him manners. But we tried everything, and he would not sit for more than a minute or two to eat. And so what I finally learned over the course of months and years was, first of all, he just has a lot of energy. A toddler with a lot of energy is hard to manage at times. But also, in terms of behavior being a form of communication, what we learned later was that eating sometimes for him was kind of a challenging sensory situation. He had issues with food texture. He, was very picky, and all these things came out kind of as we got to know more about him. But you have to kind of be an investigator when you're looking at your child's behavior and really get curious about, okay, why are they really doing this? Is this just them trying to misbehave? But a 2-year-old doesn't do that kind of thing really intentionally. It wasn't like he was intentionally trying to misbehave. This was just him. And so we had to learn like what works for him and how can we accommodate but still have boundaries. And that's the key with positive parenting too, It's not about being permissive and just like letting everything go and you don't have any rules. It's not about that. It's about how can we have boundaries while still meeting our child's needs. And so this whole idea of behavior as communication really can open your eyes to a lot of those things. Is there's, depending on what their behavior is, maybe there's some temperamental thing that they have, like their temperament is driving some need that they have, and that's what's showing up in their behavior. If your child is very introverted, maybe they need more quiet time, maybe they're overstimulated, that's why they're behaving in this way. There's so many things to look at. Those are just a few examples, but looking at behavior as communication and being kind of an investigator and understanding what the root cause of that behavior is, that is a huge component of positive parenting. Number 3 that I wanted to talk about in terms of positive parenting, one of the goals is definitely, as I said before, relationship building. So in the last, I would say probably maybe 30 years, there's been this whole sort of movement of parenting towards parenting as like a job, basically, that we are trying to produce this child and we have control over the outcome. And if we put the right inputs in, this child will be produced at the end of 18 years. That is what we want. This understanding of parenting, to my mind, does not follow what we know from research, and it doesn't really, click with positive parenting. Parenting is a relationship, it's not a job. And if you've ever read the book The Gardener and the Carpenter, and that is a parenting book, it sounds like a novel, but it's actually a parenting book. I have it here somewhere. This is her whole premise, and she's a child psychologist or a neuroscientist, I can't remember, but anyway, that book opened my eyes to this idea that parenting, as we describe it in modern culture, is not really how it's always been. And parenting is supposed to be a relationship. We foster this relationship throughout the years of our child's growing up so that hopefully by the end of it, they're an adult that has a relationship with us that we want to hang out with, right? And so it's not about always putting all these inputs in, and if I just give my kid the right education and the right food and this, at the end I have this product that is something I like. It's not really about that, because kids come with their own genetics, their own stuff, their own temperament, and we can do what we can to build a relationship with them and foster the types of skills that we want for them. But ultimately, we're not completely responsible for the outcome. We want to have a relationship with them that builds throughout the years, that can promote the kinds of positive skills and positive characteristics, but they're part of the relationship too. It's not just an in and out kind of equation, right? And so that mindset that it's always comes back to the relationship, I think, is huge. And that is what positive parenting is all about, building that relationship so you have that strong bond throughout the years of your child's, growing up. Okay, so that was number 3. Number 4, um, goal of positive parenting is modeling. So this goes back to the relationship piece, but it also goes back to all the other parts too. That through modeling, we can foster a lot of the skills that we want our kids to learn. Now, sometimes we have to do direct kind of instruction too, right? It's kind of like with teaching. There's always a certain amount of direct instruction teachers have to do, but also modeling things is another form of teaching. And so whether we're talking about emotional skills, coping with big emotions, being kind to people, fostering empathy, or fostering the learning and education that we want in our child, that modeling is a form of teaching. And that's what we talk about a lot with positive parenting, because it goes back to kind of dealing with your own stuff, right? As a parent, as an adult, the kids sometimes will trigger things in you, and we have to be kind of self-reflective enough to recognize, why is this triggering me, and what can I model for my child in terms of a healthy way to approach a situation. So, if our child is yelling and screaming, having some sort of emotional outburst over something, and we yell and scream back at them, that's not modeling the behavior we want to see, right? And so as best we can, and it is very challenging, believe me. I know it's very challenging to model the behavior you want to see, but as best we can, especially in those emotionally tense situations, model the calm and the emotional regulation that you want to see, that is what will eventually, over time, it takes time, help them learn those skills because they see it every day. And same thing with other skills. You know, like if we want our children to be kind to others, we have to model being kind to other people. It goes with so many things in life, right? And with parenting, that we have to be the model that we want them to see about how to face different situations in the world. So, just a little quick review: positive parenting goals. The main four, and I know there's many others. These are just kind of four that I thought of, and I think are kind of some of the most important. But the goals of positive parenting: fostering emotional self-regulation, finding the root causes of behavior, focus on relationship building, and modeling the skills we want to see. So that's kind of a quick overview in a few minutes of some of the things that we talk about in this group and positive parenting as a whole. I'm sure many of you are very well versed in positive parenting, and that's why you're in this group. But for people who maybe are new to this or kind of trying to parent in a different way that maybe they were not parented in, I think that kind of big overview kind of helps. So I hope that is helpful. If anybody has questions, I know this was an impromptu live, so people may watch this later. If you have questions, post them in the comments and I will get back to those. Another thing I wanted to mention is we do have the big positive parenting conference coming up next week. It starts on Tuesday. And you may have seen I posted a few links in the group about how to sign up for that. It's free, and there are presenters every day, and there is that you get to watch on video. You know, it's all online on video, and they are all this year also a couple of new things that this positive parenting conference is awesome every year. But a couple of new things this year is that the organizers are giving away a 13, I think they call it 13 quick tips or 13 highlights. It's an ebook basically of all the talks and kind of the highlight points of each one. So like if you took notes, this is what you would take notes on, but you don't even have to take notes because they did it for you. So if you miss a talk that you didn't get to see all of, then at least you'll have the ebook with the notes in it that you can kind of at least refer back to about the particular talk that you may or may not have gotten to see. And then the other thing they're doing this year is they're having some extra bonus days for catch up. And so, you know, it's so when you're so busy as a parent and you get all this information flooding in, sometimes you can't watch all the videos in one day. And so this year they're adding, I think, 2 or 3 extra catch up days. So if you missed, you know, some of the talks on day one, you have days at the end or mixed in to watch some of those videos that you may not have caught during the week. And so I would encourage everybody to sign up for that because it's free and it's a great resource. And I mean, the speakers that they have are just top notch. Some of my favorite parenting books, like The Power of Showing Up, Tina Bryson and Dan Siegel. And there's a couple other ones that just off the top of my head I remember, but these are like top name authors, and you get to see them interact and give a presentation just like you were sitting at a conference room. So it's really cool. I'll put the link to sign up for that in here. If anybody has questions, let me know. If you have suggestions for things to talk about in this group, I'm going to try once, maybe, you know, at least once a month or twice a month, come on live and talk about some topic. I would love to have people come on and, you know, if you have questions or want to talk about a certain issue or whatever, I want this group to be a support for you. So if you have suggestions, feel free to send me an email or put it in the group and I will see it. So have a good Friday. Everybody take care. I will see you next time.